أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. In the name of God, most merciful, ever merciful, and may God's peace and blessings be upon His holy Prophet Muhammad and the purified members of his household and progeny. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليكم إني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. والسلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. Dear respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today marks the entrance into the season of mourning and sadness, especially in the school of the followers of Ahlul Bayt, peace and blessings upon them all. Over the next 2 months, we are going to encounter a series of events, all of them filled with sorrow and sadness and mourning for the Holy Prophet and his family. On the 25th of the month of Muharram, this month, we have the martyrdom of Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam, followed by the martyrdom of Imam al-Hasan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam on the 7th of Safar, followed by the demise of the Holy Prophet on the 28th of Safar, followed by the demise of Imam al-Rida alayhi salam on the 29th of Safar. But there's no doubt that the greatest of these tragedies and the greatest of these calamities in this season is that which takes place on the 10th of Muharram, the tragedy of our third Imam, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, in which he was killed and martyred and beheaded along with his companions, his loyal companions, and the family members who followed him. And then the women and children were taken, imprisoned as captives from Karbala all the way to Damascus, from where they returned back to Karbala initially, and then went back to the city, the holy city of Al-Madinah Al-Munawwara. And those events are the ones that we usually commemorate on the 20th of the month of Safar. Anyone who has experienced the season of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, the season of sorrowness, the season of spirituality, knows that it brings with itself its own mood and its own spirituality. We wait for it, and when it comes with its own spirituality and its own sorrow, its own mood of mourning. And what this tells us is that this is going to be a golden opportunity for us. This is going to be an opportunity for us for self-improvement and self-purification. But that's exactly what it is. It's just an opportunity. By definition, an opportunity is a set of circumstances that render something possible. And in this case, the circumstance is a very short amount of time. In reality, it's about 10 days and 10 nights, where we have this opportunity for self-purification and self-improvement. If we look at the normal state of human beings in generally human beings are not always in a state of readiness and preparedness for whatever they're about to embark on. Human beings need to prepare. If they want to do something fully, if they want to benefit fully from whatever they're doing, whatever activity it may be, they need to prepare themselves, no matter what the activity is. If you're about to take a trip, if you want to embark on academic studies, if you want to have a really good workout session, or even if you want to go and have a really good session of sleep. Today, something as simple as sleep has become an entire field. It's a scientific field where you go to experts and they will run tests on you. They call them polysomnography, to make sure how your heart is beating and how your body and your eyes are moving when you sleep. And then they'll tell you what to eat and what not to eat, so that you maximize the benefit from the time that you're sleeping. Something as simple as sleep requires readiness, requires preparation. And in fact, if we look at the amount of time, the quality and the quantity of preparation that human beings put into an activity, this is usually a very good indication of the importance that they want to give to that activity. The more they prepare and the more quality they give to the preparation for that activity, the more it tells us that that person cares about that activity. They consider it important and that they are aware that there is a preparation and a readiness that is required. So if we go back to what we were saying about this season of Muharram, this season of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, while we're saying that it brings with it its own spirituality and its own mood and its own sorrow, and it allows us to better improve ourselves and to purify ourselves and to link us to Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam and to link us to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, while it brings that on its own, we need to do our share. We need to make sure that we are not simply going through the motions passively. We need to make sure that once we get out of the season, we are in a better state than we were when we entered it initially. So in order to do this, allow me to share with you a number of reminders, some points that I have shared with others and that I use myself to make sure that when we go through the season, we do so in a state of awareness and consciousness, and that we benefit fully from every night, inshallah, the blessed nights that we are going to have over the next 9 or 10 nights, that we are fully going to benefit from them in mind, in body, and in soul. The first type of preparation that we can talk about is a psychological preparation. We have in the narrations from Imam Rida alayhi salam a narration in which he says, when the first of Muharram would arrive, he talks about his father, our seventh Imam, Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam. He says, when the first of Muharram would arrive, my father, Imam al-Kadhim, would enter into a state of sorrow. And in fact, the word that he uses, Imam alayhi salam, he uses a word that probably is best translated as depression. Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam becomes depressed, becomes sad, and he would not be seen laughing or smiling anymore. And the Imam says that this would last for 10 days. And on the 10th day, Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam would reach the height of his sorrow and his tragedy and his calamity and his weeping. And of course the 10th is the day of the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. What this tells us is that in order to fully benefit from this time, from this season, we need to ensure that we create conditions that allow us to be psychologically ready to fully benefit from these days and nights. And in our narrations, we have a series of teachings and recommendations. And these are things that psychologically allow us to be in this mood and to fully benefit from these nights. We are told, for instance, to wear clothes that are appropriate for mourning. We are told that we are to avoid laughter and we are to avoid entertainment that is in vain. And we are supposed to stay away, and this applies to women and men, girls and boys, old and young. We are told that we are not supposed to be attaching ourselves too much to the external appearances and beauty. This is not the time of the year to look our best and smell our best and be on our best appearance. This is not the time of the year to do this. In fact, perhaps the best recommendation that we have here is to act as though any one of us would have lost a very dear friend or a family member. And in that case, no one needs to come and tell you, may God preserve all of your family members and dear ones, no one needs to come and tell you how to be psychologically. You are supposed to intuitively know in what manner you're going to carry yourself when you have lost someone very dear to you. The same applies when you have lost someone like Imam Hussein alayhi salam in your life. In conduct and in manners, and I don't think I need to say a lot here. We are in the remembrance of a man who personified the best, most exemplary conduct and the best, most exemplary manners. He showed the utmost patience and resilience and perseverance. He showed the best manners in the most difficult of circumstances. He displayed the greatest mercy with the youth and the old, with the women and the men, with those who were with him as well as with those who were against him in the events of Karbala. So as followers of the Imam going through these days and nights, let's keep in mind this type of conduct and manners between ourselves, amongst ourselves, and inshallah beyond. The third type of preparedness, and this one is extremely important because it's a little bit subtle. The third type of preparedness is a preparedness in attitude. There are people who will turn things into negatives. I wanted to say they want to concentrate on the negatives, but the reality is they turn something that is good into a negative. They will listen to the lecturers and they will complain about them. The lecturers are talking too much, or talking not enough, or now they're not choosing the right topic, or they should be talking about something else. They will look at the donations, and they will look at the food, and they will say, perhaps there are people who are more needy, and this is where all of this should be going. They will complain that there are too many Islamic centers and too many majalis, and people should be sitting together united under one majlis. And the list goes on and on. They will complain about the rituals of sorrow and sadness, and they will say that they might be exaggerated, that there's too much sorrow and sadness, and we need to be more objective and neutral, and so on and so forth. And we're not going to answer each one of these right now. The bottom line is there's a very good reason for all of these. There are huge benefits in having multiple places. Every corner of the earth should have a majlis for Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. That's not the issue. There are huge benefits in making sure that people are fed when they come to these places. There's a huge blessing that comes of it for the people who give and the people who take, and bringing the community together, and so on and so forth. The problem with this is it's a problem of attitude. There are people who are turning things that could be very easily spun into positives, they're spinning them into negatives. So what we need to concentrate on for ourselves is to have the proper attitude as we enter these days and nights. When we attend the gatherings of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, the attitude that we should probably have is to make sure that we understand, and this is something we have to force ourselves to sit in psychologically in this attitude, as though everything that is being said is directly addressed at us. But when we hear it, we cannot be passive about it. We have to play a role of a participant in what we are hearing, as though we know that we have a certain spiritual need. And we look for anything, for every word, from every speaker, in every event, in every activity. We look for something that's going to be the remedy to our need. And my need and yours are not the same. I know what I need, and you know what you need. And the attitude is simply one where you have to look at what is being said and take it, and take from it what you would need for your own need. And this is an attitude. This is not that the person is giving you exactly what you need or not. Someone may go to the doctor because they feel they're ill, they have an issue, they have a problem, an illness. If you're going to the doctor and you're in that state of neediness, I don't think anyone would consider your visit to the doctor very successful if you decide to go to the doctor knowing that this is where your remedy is supposed to be, and instead of listening to the doctor, you go in, you sit around for a little while, you look at others, you try to guess what's wrong with them, you might talk to a couple of people, and then you leave. You haven't accomplished the goal here. If we are attending these gatherings, if we're attending these places, it's because we believe that there's a dosage of treatment that we're going to get. But this requires our participation actively in what we're receiving. We have to be constantly on the lookout Where am I going to get the maximum benefit? Which word is going to impact me and transform my life? The next dimension of our preparedness is the spiritual preparedness. Perhaps the most important point here is to emphasize two themes. The first one is the removal of barriers, and the second one, sincerity. I have to make sure that I'm spiritually in a state where I have not put barriers that prevent me from getting the benefits of these days and nights. I ask myself, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created me for what purpose? What's the point of my existence? And without going into too much detail, the bottom line is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us to be the best servants we can to Him. That's the bottom line. I have to reach a state where in my heart of hearts, I actually feel that I am a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I have to feel, and this is the next level, I have to feel that I am worthy of being a servant of Allah. That Allah accepts my servitude to Him. I'm that kind of servant. So I have to start from the beginning, and I have to look at my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is it a proper relationship, or is it damaged? If it's damaged, and I think all of us have to say that there is some damage, none of us are infallible, then we start by asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's forgiveness, and then we identify the issues. If I haven't prayed for 2 years, I'm obviously not going to catch up in 10 nights. But I can make a plan in 10 nights. And I can make a schedule and make a decision and decide that within 2 years, first of all, I will be praying on time from now on. And secondly, that I will be caught up on all my prayers that I have missed. I fix my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's layer one. I ask for His forgiveness and I deal with the issues. I identify the issues and I deal with them so that I remove the barriers. And then secondly, I deal with my issues and my relationships with other people, because those affect my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is my relationship with my spouse Islamic? Is my relationship with my parents Islamic? Is my relationship with my children Islamic? Is my relationship with my brothers and sisters of the community Islamic or not? If there are gaps, I identify them and I work on them. And then I have removed this barrier and I'm on my way to sincerity towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then there's a sincerity towards the person for whom we're gathering. A sincerity towards Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. I have to be conscious of the fact that when I'm attending, the reason for attending is not to eat a little bit of food. And the reason for attending is not to see a really dear friend or to socialize with people I haven't seen in a while. Those have their own benefits, but that's not the reason I'm attending. The reason I'm attending is because I have true, deep love towards Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. It's a symbolic act, and I'm aware of what I'm doing when I'm attending. Now, the sincerity becomes towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. It removes the barriers and it creates the spirituality I need to fully benefit from these types of events and these days and nights. The next couple of points, very quickly, have to do with something we've talked about in the past, so I'm not going to dwell on the point. But it's this dual role that we're supposed to have as a relationship with Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam and the events of Karbala. This duality between reason and emotion, between having a rational relationship with the Imam and understanding in depth in an analytical, strategic manner what happened, while at the same time having an emotional link, a deep, heart-seated link with the Imam. So the next points have to do with this. The first one, and this our scholars refer to this as al-ibra and al-abra, being able to extract the lessons and also being able to shed the tear. If we move to the physical preparedness, there is no doubt that in our religion, the tear, any tear, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is considered sacred. And if we go to the narrations that talk about the tear that is spilled, that we pour for the sake of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, there is an insistence about its holiness for the person who cries, for the person who attempts to cry, and for the person who makes others cry on behalf and for the tragedies of Ahlul Bayt, and especially Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. And this is not only something that we notice at a theoretical level of the narrations, we see it in the conduct of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. The Holy Prophet says that there is in the heart of the true believers, of the mu'min, not the Muslim, he says of the mu'min, there is a heat in the heart of the believers for the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam that will never cool down. And we have a narration from Imam al-Rida alayhi salam in which he says, the day of Hussein has created ulcers in our eyelids. And the day of Hussein has created ulcers in our eyelids and spilled our tears and degraded our nobility on the land of Karbala, or Karbin wa Bala, on the land of tribulation and distress. In another narration, when Rayyan ibn Shabib enters on the 1st of Muharram to visit Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, as soon as the Imam sees him, he tells him, O son of Shabib, if you are ever going to cry about anything, then cry for Al-Hussein, son of Ali, for he was beheaded like the beheading of sheep. When we look at these, we see that there is a certain physical dimension to this. And now we're talking about the physical dimension. In order for me to be fully engaged and to be able to conduct myself in this manner so that I am able to emotionally react to what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing, I have to be physically ready. And this goes from things as simple as making sure my schedule allows me to attend, and making sure that my sleep schedule allows me to be fully alert when I'm here, and making sure that I haven't eaten too far out or too close to the majlis so that I'm not distracted when I'm hearing the majlis. And this includes making sure that I'm seated properly so that I can actually hear what's being said. Not everybody sitting everywhere hears what's being said in the same manner. If I want to fully benefit, I have to make sure I'm properly seated and I'm close to the action and I can engage and be stimulated with what I'm hearing. So if this means I have to attend earlier, and inshallah over the next nights we will see how this place and other places will fill up, inshallah, let's attend earlier. The important thing is you are fully aware of what's going on, and that includes the physical dimension too. The next preparedness is at the intellectual dimension. As we said, the emotional dimension is extremely important. The tear for Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam is not only important, it's sacred. There is no issue about that. And I'm not going to insist too much on the emotional. Inshallah, the emotional will happen. Let's talk now about the intellectual. Come prepared to be stimulated and engaged intellectually. Come prepared to learn. There is a need here for you to prepare yourself as though you are going to be engaged intellectually. It's not the same as attending and sitting passively and waiting for any information to be thrown at you. You have to be prepared for that. There's a need for us to attach ourselves to Imam Hussein alayhi salam beyond the emotional. For people who are followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, Imam al-Hussein is a philosophy. He's a way of life. He's a worldview. He's a system of values. If I don't spend time to understand the words of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and I don't spend time analyzing the conduct and the decisions of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, I will not be able to get into the dimension of the Imam that makes him, for me, a philosophy and a way of life. I will not be able to look at the Imam as something I can fully understand and then apply in my life. I will look at the Imam as a grouping of information that I have gathered over time, and it stops there. I need to be fully aware. Intellectually, I need to understand where I am, what I'm doing, what are we doing here, what is this gathering, what does it mean, what does it symbolize, and how does it apply in my life. That's layer one. And once I have achieved that layer, we move to layer two, and I seize the opportunity to share this with the rest of the world. This beautiful message from this beautiful human being to the rest of humanity. I make it into the universal message that it's supposed to be. And there is so much work to be done here. We need people who do the coordination and organization of events in Islamic centers. And yes, that includes cooking and cleaning and making sure that every single person who attends is fully benefiting from every minute that they're spending here, from the youngest to the oldest, and people who speak all languages and all cultures, and reverts and converts, as well as people who have been in the faith for a long time. Everybody needs to be thought about so that we have properly organized events. We need people who can write, and we need people who can publish, and we need people who can translate, and we need people who can edit and publish content that is of quality online. And we need people who can convert the story of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam into artistic expressions and depictions so that they are more resounding and impactful on these societies. We need people who know how to market and advertise and link these events to humanitarian and activist causes happening in the world. All of this is at the level of the intellect. Two more points about the intellect, and then we move on to the last 2 points very quickly. The first one is we need to understand, once we understood all of this, we need to understand the societies, the cultures, the landscapes, the political world in which we live, so that we act in a strategic and smart and efficient way. And inshallah, over the next nights, we will see how the Imam, in every one of his actions, he's strategic. And we see that in all the actions and decisions of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. They are strategic, they are far-sighted, they are nuanced and subtle in the way they work. There's always a complex thinking that requires analysis to fully grasp, and sometimes the people in their time don't even fully grasp what's going on. You need centuries of analysis afterwards to fully understand the ramifications. We need to do that kind of analysis, and of course it takes time and it takes a little bit of patience, but it's necessary for me to be a representative of the Imam and not do harm instead of good, even if I have good intentions. To represent the Imam properly, I have to understand the Imam, and I have to understand his words and his positions and his decisions. The last 2 points of preparedness, the first one has to do with avoiding sins. From everything we have said so far, it should be clear that our attendance in these gatherings needs to be considered as an act of worship. And this is not a metaphor. We're not saying that attending these gatherings is like an act of worship. We're saying attending these gatherings is an act. It's not like an act. It is in itself an act of worship. And I have no doubt that anyone who attends these gatherings, these blessed gatherings of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, especially in the month of Muharram, no one would ever even, it wouldn't even cross anyone's mind of committing any sins while in attendance. But the point is, what about the rest of the time? What about the rest of the days and the nights while we're attending? The purpose here is to make sure that we remain coherent with ourselves. We cannot use the same ear that just listened to the maqtal of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam to perform a sin. And we cannot use the same hand that just did latma on Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam to perform a sin. And we cannot use the same eye that just shed tears for Imam al-Hussein to look at things that are haram. This is not coherent. And if I'm able to maintain that discipline for 10 days, then this becomes a school of discipline for me. For 10 days I'm able to maintain that frame of mind. It means I can maintain it for another day, and hopefully another week, and hopefully another month and another year, and for the rest of my life. There's a school here that we need to take with us. We have to graduate from it. Avoiding sinning is part of the preparation that we need to do. It's a decision, conscious decision we make right now as we embark on this journey with Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. And the last point that we mentioned is the one that has to do with remembering the Imam of our time. And this is my last point for the preparation for these nights. And I don't want to exceed my time, so allow me simply to say that we need to look at our relationship with the Imam of our time, and we need to look at his relationship with his grandfather, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. And there is so much to say here, and we don't have time to even get into this topic, but perhaps we get a glimpse from it when we read the words of Imam al-Mahdi ajalallah faraja, when he talks to his grandfather, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, in Ziyarat al-Nahiya al-Muqaddasa, in which he tells his grandfather, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, if the centuries have pushed me far away from you, and the circumstances have prevented me from being one of your supporters, and I have not been able to show enmity towards those who were your enemies, and I have not been able to fight against those whose hearts were filled with hatred towards you, then I shall weep for you morning and evening, and I shall weep blood instead of tears for you. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us and guide us and accept our deeds, so that we may fully benefit in mind, in body, and in soul from the holy days and nights awaiting us. Assalamu ala al-Husayn wa ala Ali ibn al-Husayn wa ala awlad al-Husayn wa ala ashab al-Husayn wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi al-tayyibin al-tahirin.